For the Las Vegas Raiders to have success in the 2025 NFL season, it's going to come down to what they do on the offensive side of the football. I'm very confident in Pete Carroll being a good defensive-minded head coach. I'm very confident in Patrick Graham, but I'm not 100% sure with the offense side of the football because I would make the argument the reason why the Raiders sucked in 2024 was because Antonio Pierce, who isn't a terrible head coach, isn't really that bad on the defensive side. Obviously, he wasn't calling plays. He had Patrick Graham to kind of run things. But the Raiders weren't bad on the defense side of the football, but it was the offensive side that held us back last year. It was Luke Getsy that did a really, really poor job, and we're in a similar spot this year with Chip Kelly, where Chip Kelly's going to run the offense, and he's our offensive coordinator. But what's interesting about Chip Kelly, at least in my perspective, is listening to his presser really actually fires me up. All right, because not only can you listen to this guy's presser, but you can watch the tape. You can watch Chip Kelly's offenses and you can tell that the spacings concepts, the mills concepts, the scissors concepts, you can tell that the receivers and tight ends running those concepts actually understand exactly at which point they need to make their cuts. They understand what they need to do out there. And that's because of the fact that Chip Kelly understands how to install an offense. And he's done it multiple times at this point. Right? He did it at Ohio State last year, which helped them win a championship. Prior to that, he was at UCLA, he was with the Eagles, the Niners, the Ducks, and he's held multiple positions even prior to that. But in Chip Kelly's presser earlier, he gave us a lot of inside information into what the Raiders could look like this season. And I'm excited to kind of talk about it because I think the Raiders are actually going to be a good football team this year. And I think our offense specifically will be able to have success. And I'm excited for it, man. Obviously, in this video, we're not going to really get into Chip Kelly and on the offensive side, kind of what he does in terms of the tape. I will be dropping a video most likely tomorrow. Obviously, I have been sick. I also had a family member pass away a couple days back. So I've been kind of busy with that. But as we go forward, I want to get into Chip Kelly's offense. So we will break down his offense probably tomorrow. And I'll show you guys some of what he does. It's very, very impressive. But let's talk about some of what Chip Kelly said in his presser, specifically with some of the quarterbacks. Right, I think there's a chance the Raiders go forward into this season with Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. We'll talk about that here in a second. But one of the interesting questions that this guy was asked was the crossover from college to the NFL. Right, at the same time, Chip Kelly was asked, do you think you can bring what you did in college and apply it to the NFL, and will you have the same success? And Chip Kelly answered it very, very interestingly. I want you guys to listen to this, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
You spent 7 years now in college football after the time that you had in the NFL. To the extent that you could bring what you were doing in college to the NFL, is there crossover there? And are you starting to see a little bit more of what the college game is offering offensively in the NFL?
Yeah, I think football is football. And I heard a long time ago, I'm going to make this up, but if you weren't in the room with Amos Alonzo Stagg and Newton Rockne when they invented this game, then you stole the idea from somebody. So, I think the game is cyclical. It has its ebbs and flows. The offense gets pulled out ahead and starts to score a lot more points, and then the defenses catches up and they're shutting people down. There's things that will be run Sunday in this Super Bowl that were run at the high school level. I think Andy Reid does a great job of watching football at every single level. I watch football at every single level, and you watch the guys that are really, really good at this game. And football flows up and down now. It goes from the high school level to there's a really good scheme that trickles into the college level. That college level gets copied up to the NFL, and then vice versa. So I think the game is at an all-time high because I think the coaching is at an all-time high because I think with the advent of social media, YouTube, and things like that, as people's access to film and tape is more prevalent, so you can see more things that people are doing throughout all of football. But I think I see it blending a lot more now. There's obviously some things. I think the quarterback gets run a little bit more at the college level, but then you look at what Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are doing at this level in running the football. So it's really become really wide open, and I'm excited to be at the highest level and in the opportunity to go against the best coaches in the world.
So Chip Kelly is basically putting it out there that watching football today, as an offensive coach, a lot of what you're going to essentially do is you're going to copy other people, right? A lot of what you're going to do is you're going to copy what you're seeing that's actually being successful. And it's such an important part because I don't think people realize this. Ben Johnson has these plays where, one receiver catches the ball and then he pitches it to his tackle who comes around on some sort of end around. Or maybe it's a receiver catches it and pitches it to the running back. Andy Reid does this as well, where, sometimes Travis Kelce catches and he'll pitch it back to a running back. The thing is Andy Reid and Ben Johnson are not creating those plays, right? They're copying other people who have essentially created those plays. And one of the interesting things with that is, as a coach, you have to understand that you have to adapt. You have to be able to watch the other levels of football, and you have to be able to apply those things to you as your own offense, as you're trying to do your thing out there. You got to be able to copy, and you got to be able to take parts that are working from other teams, right? One of the things that I feel like with Luke Getsy is an example that didn't work out for the Raiders, and this isn't just Luke Getsy, there's a lot of coordinators that don't have success, is they try to stick to a philosophy that they've had success with or they've learned and they think that's the best philosophy out there, and they don't make the adjustments to have success at the highest level, right? You don't make the adjustments to what actually works and what doesn't work, right? I'll give you guys a great example. Over the past 2 to 3 years, the duo run concept has really came into the NFL and it's taken the league by storm, essentially. And the thing with duo is it's an old concept, right? It was created 30, 40, 50 years ago, but it went away for a really, really long time. But what ended up happening was on the defensive side of the football, Vic Fangio came in and said, we're going to play two safeties deep. We're going to play a light box and we're going to let you run the football if you want. And with the duo concept, it makes it super easy against a light box to be able to basically find 4 or 5 yards in every single play. So teams are running duo a ton, but there's coaches that refuse to run it, right? And I think, basic things like that, where you're adapting to what's actually working based off what the defense is doing. We saw when Patrick Mahomes came in initially, this guy started throwing, 400 or 500 yards a game, and the Chiefs' offense was the highest scoring offense we had ever seen. To what they're at today, they're the complete opposite. It's because defenses have made that adjustment. But the Chiefs have also made adjustments, right? So it's allowing Andy Reid to continue to have success. And I say that because for Chip Kelly to have success, he has to understand that concept. And he has, right? To say Chip Kelly is the same coach he was when he was at Oregon to what he is today is not 100% fact, right? He ran a much different offense back in the days. High-powered, high-tempo, no huddle, right? You just get up to the football, you just snap the football, and you just go, right? And today, he's not doing that anymore, right? He is no longer running that style of offense, and it's because he's adapted. I love that Chip Kelly's being 100% honest with the fact that he's copying other people to what works, because that is what works in the NFL, right? But he also is going to have to figure out, how are you going to get a quarterback to be able to come in and run the offense, right? And for the Raiders, that's going to be a big part of it. What's your quarterback look like? How do you figure that out? He was asked a question specifically about it. He was asked about, what his goals are. And then can you talk about the quarterback room? I'm going to let you guys listen into it. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Hi, Coach. My name is Alex Eshelman. I'm with Channel 13 Sports here in Las Vegas. Congratulations on the new role. What are your initial goals just stepping into this role and specifically talking about the quarterback room? What do you hope to add and also utilize the current talent there?
Yeah, I am just got here, so I'm getting a computer right now to look at film and start to analyze the personnel that's here. With our personnel department and with Pete and trying to put this thing together. The most important thing on the forefront for us, and one of the things that I think is really difficult for every coach when you start at a new job is staffing, and that's really what our focus and concentration is on right now. Putting together the best staff we possibly can for the Vegas Raiders, and we'll all get back in. We actually start next Tuesday. I kind of got a jump start of things and wanted to get here as quick as possible. But that's right now. We're talking about staffing, and we haven't had one discussion about personnel or kind of what direction or what that will look like as we move forward.
So the initial time when he was asked about the quarterback, he didn't really answer much, right? He basically said that he just got here and he's mostly focused on the staffing at the moment. He hasn't gotten too much in the personnel, but he was quickly asked a follow-up question, which I'll let you guys listen into really quickly.
Well, what does the prototypical Chip Kelly quarterback look like, and what do you need to make your offense go in terms of the quarterback position?
I think it depends on the personnel because you can't build a quarterback. We don't have a scientific lab here where we can say we want a 6'5" guy that's 250 pounds and runs 4.4 and can make every throw. You can't do that. You have to look at what is available to you, whether it's through the draft or through free agency or on the current roster, and then what are their strengths, and then how do we design our offense around their strengths, because it has to be designed around how the quarterback plays. So I think it's really your evaluation of the personnel that's available to you, and then fitting them into that system. And I've had an opportunity when I was in the NFL. I thought Nick Foles did an unbelievable job in Nick's first year when we were in Philly. He threw 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and did a great job. I had a chance to coach Mike Vick, who's one of the all-time greatest athletes to ever play, and enjoyed it. And then Mike got hurt, and then Nick took over. So we had to kind of do 2 different things, but 2 really special players right there. But in my first year, kind of ran into that when I was in Philly. So I think you have to be able to adapt to what you have. And that's putting those guys in position to make plays and then let them go make plays. Because I think this league is always about the players, and it will always still be about the players. So find out what they do well and try to actuate those traits. And then if there are some weaknesses, can you kind of mask them and cover them up a little bit?
And then there you guys have it, right? Chip Kelly is basically putting it out there that we are going to, the quarterback that's going to work for us depends on the personnel. And that's 100% fact, right? And here's the interesting thing with how Coach essentially answers this, right? When Chip Kelly says that, hey, it depends on the personnel, we need to design an offense around the quarterback, and then, of course, making sure that quarterback fits in our system. When he says all that, right, he's basically saying that, I don't need to go out there and find a quarterback to run my offense. I will design my offense to what a quarterback essentially needs, right? And I don't want to overlook this or skip past this and not give this too much thought. It's very, very important for an offensive coordinator to recognize what a team has and to make sure your offense can best benefit that quarterback, right? And if it doesn't, then you need to make that adjustment as we talked about earlier, right? As Chip Kelly basically said, he makes that adjustment. He watches other teams. It's very, very pivotal for the Raiders this season. We have Gardner Minshew under contract. We have Aiden O'Connell under contract. The realistic truth is we probably won't get another quarterback, right? I know everybody's like, get Cam Ward, get Shador Sanders. There's a real chance both of those guys are either gone in the top 3 or 4 picks, or there's a real chance teams only want Cam Ward and no one else wants another quarterback in the first round. And then we have to wait until, round 2 or 3, which, maybe you take a quarterback at that point. But if you're taking a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round, that's not a starting caliber day 1 quarterback, right? So there's a realistic shot the Raiders do go into this season with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. And what people have to realize is, when you have Gardner Minshew running Luke Getsy's offense, it's not going to work, right? No matter who it is, right? We saw that with Justin Fields. We saw it with Aiden O'Connell. We saw it with Gardner Minshew. When Luke Getsy was calling the plays, things sucked. But our offense was not legit. And there's a lot of spacing issues. I won't get into all of that. We've already talked about that in the past. But when Gardner Minshew goes and plays with a different coach, right, when he was with the Indianapolis Colts, right, the Colts have a really good head coach who is obviously a play caller. And Gardner Minshew wins 8-9 games with the Indianapolis Colts. It's a lot different when you're under a different scheme and system, and it could be the same quarterback, right? And this is one of the things we're going to get with Chip Kelly is he might go into this season with Gardner or with Aiden O'Connell, and he might say, I can take these quarterbacks and they will fit my scheme and system. And they might actually have a lot more success. And this is one of the things with Aiden O'Connell where, I watch Aiden's tape and he has a really, really good arm. He makes all the passes. Yeah, he's a little limited, but he's a really good quarterback in terms of the ball placement, the accuracy. He knows where to put the football. And he does a good job reading coverage. So there's a chance that you take those traits right there and you put into a Chip Kelly offense. There's a chance you have a top 10 quarterback, right? Like, it's not guaranteed that Aiden O'Connell will bust out, right? Now, of course, he's young, so we don't really know if he's going to be a good quarterback or not. Maybe he busts out. But the point I'm trying to make is when you have a Chip Kelly offense, a Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell could have a lot more success because the offensive coordinator is a lot better at designing plays, at calling plays, keeping the defense honest with all the motions and those type of things. I'll give you guys another example. Jared Goff has been fortunate to play with arguably the 2 best play callers in the NFL, in Sean McVay and of course Ben Johnson, right? Jared Goff got to be the quarterback under those 2 guys. Now Jared Goff has been with a total of 4 offensive coordinators. The 2 guys that are very, very good, he's had a lot of success with, he's been in the playoffs with. But the 2 guys that are the other coordinators, he's 0-12, right? Or 0-11. Right? He's never won a game without Sean McVay and Ben Johnson. He sucked in every other game without those two guys. And that's kind of an extreme example, but you realize that, Sean McVay, Ben Johnson are great coordinators. They can call plays a certain type of way, and they can take any player to the Super Bowl. Right? Jimmy G's another example. You go from Kyle Shanahan to Josh McDaniels, and you see a massive difference. Now, I'm not saying Chip Kelly is as good as someone like Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, but Chip Kelly's better than Luke Getsy, and he's a lot better than some of the guys. Anthony Lynn was the coordinator for Jared Goff. He was one of the other two coordinators. Sometimes a good coordinator can elevate a quarterback. So it's not guaranteed that the Raiders are going to go all in and get another quarterback. We might just go forward with the two we already have. He also did say it in that same context that, we're not going to find a guy that's the perfect quarterback. We're not going to get a 6'5" quarterback that runs a 4.4 40-yard dash, right? We're going to basically design our offense around how the quarterback plays. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Raiders design their offense as we go into this next season. Obviously, this is not a film breakdown. I don't want to get too much into it because we will do that tomorrow. But just watching some of what Chip Kelly did at Ohio State, a lot of what he did was you had a lot of eye candy in the backfield. You had motions. You had guys running around in the backfield. Before a play would start, you have three guys to the left. Before the play starts, two guys shift over to the right really quickly. A guy goes into motion. You bootleg there's just a lot of different things kind of going on. But it's basic stuff. And sometimes for a quarterback, that makes it easier to see what the defense is doing, right? And I think with Chip Kelly, our offense is going to be a lot better, right? So I'm excited for the season as we kind of get into it. He was asked one other question, and I think this was probably the best question he was asked. He was essentially asked, where do you think you grew the most as a play caller and as a coach? I want you guys to listen into it, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Chip Carroll with the Raiders. Where do you think you grew the most in your time around the college game and as a play caller and as a coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think sometimes you don't think internally and trying to think about where you grew, but I think try to stay on top of the game, and where the game is headed. We huddled a lot this year, didn't run a lot of plays. We had starting from our head coach on down, had a great vision for how to play a 16-game season, and what toll that takes on your players. And, so how do we manage that with player load and some of the other things that we can do, mixing in the sports science, and understanding that, which was drastically different from, when I was a college coach at Oregon and we were trying to get as many snaps a game in as possible and running guys off the field. I think we've evolved that way, just because I think the game itself has evolved. I think there's a trend overall that the number of snaps, both at the college level and the NFL level, are down. So you have to adjust that way. So I think that's really one of the biggest things, going from those 5 wides, fast, no huddle, breakneck speed, shiny helmets to getting in a huddle and playing with 12 personnel is a little bit different, but you still get the same amount of points when you get the ball across the goal line, whether you run it across or throw it across. So we're just trying to get some first downs and score some points.
So there you guys have it, right? That is very similar to the first question that he was kind of asked. The answer is kind of similar as well. But, basically he's saying that, I want to essentially stay on, top of the game of football, right? Essentially, I want to make sure that as an offensive coordinator, I'm staying with the trends, right? If it's duo, if it's outside zone, I'm staying with the trends, right? He also went back and talked about how at Oregon, they basically went no huddle and they ran tempo. They sprinted to the football and they did those things. And he goes, but this year at Ohio State, we huddled a lot, right? We didn't get into the no huddle offense all that much, right? So he's basically putting it out there that one of the ways that I grew was I basically learned what some of the other people were doing that allowed them to have success. And I love it, right? Because as a play caller, as an offensive coordinator, you got to grow with the game of football. You got to realize what works 10 years ago is not going to work today. And again, a lot of coaches fail, right? Like, they might have success early on and they never really adapt, and, it just doesn't get better, and they kind of fall off a little bit as coaches. I love the fact that this guy is putting it out there that he's grown as a play caller because he understands kind of what's happening, some of the shifts and the changes. Overall, I really, really, really like what I've heard from Chip Kelly. Obviously, we'll have to see him actually put it out there on the field. Right, on paper, things look great. I will say this, the Raiders are trending in the right direction. no matter what anybody says, you know, at the end of the day, when you go from Antonio Pierce and Luke Getsy as your head coach, offensive coordinator, and then you go to Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, that's a huge upgrade. You're going to just naturally be better because you're better at that position, right? You're going to be better because you're, you know, essentially the guy you have that's now calling plays or running your team. They've done it at the highest level. They've had success and they've proven it, right? Like Luke Getsy had never proven himself. Antonio Pierce had never proven himself. The guys we have right now have proven themselves, and both guys have been head coaches. Both guys have had a ton of success. I'm excited for this one, man. Raiders fans should definitely be excited too. And the video will drop tomorrow. I think a lot of you guys are going to enjoy it. So turn on notifications, man. Be subscribed. I'm excited for the year, man. I hope you guys are as well. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.